Hello and welcome to Audiobook Reviews. In this video, I'll be discussing The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie, the second standalone-ish novel taking place after the First Law trilogy. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I've had a bit of a love-hate relationship with Abercrombie's work. Like virtually everyone, I love his character work and prose, but I also have had a lot of issues with the way he plotted a lot of the First Law, and as well with Best Served Cold. He does truly excel in the one area, and then leaves more to be desired of the other for me. The Heroes, I have to say, though, in many ways was the best of Abercrombie's work that I've read so far, though it did fall flat in some other ways. This book takes place in less than a week total, and gives the most unique and complete take on a battle that I've ever seen. I think that this smaller scope really let Abercrombie shine, and we're not looking at a large-scale event or story, really, but we're getting the very, very complete beginning to end of the Battle of Osrung. What makes this story truly unique is the focus not just on one side, but we really spend equal parts with both the Union troops and the Northern fighters. We see quite a few familiar faces on both ends, but the bulk of the points of view are from those we're meeting for the first time, or that we're just spending time with for the first time for some of those that were established. The base setup of the story works really, really well, I think, for a couple of reasons. First, we get a rare look into not just the bigger aspects or just the dramatic elements, the charges, the last stands, that sort of thing. We get the entire process of a battle. This allows the reader to experience the events that through many different eyes and mindsets and get the most complete view of a battle possible. We see everyone from young boys freshly recruited on both sides, we see skilled veterans on both sides, and we see plenty of the unskilled, both new and old, in many different ways as well. A big theme throughout goes along with the whole idea of the title of the book being The Heroes as well, is the idea of heroes in general. The Heroes is specifically a landmark first. It's a hill with stones around it. Apparently, heroes from the north were buried there long ago. Nobody's really honestly sure at this point, though. But we really get a look at a lot of different ideas about what a hero is, and what makes a person a hero, and whether it's good or bad. We see heroes born, we see heroes die, and the question of good or bad remains present throughout. Of course, it's Abercrombie, so the cynical take is the big one that's focused on, but really no point of view is missed throughout the story. Second, and for me the biggest reason the setup worked so well, is the overall storytelling possible when you're looking at so many individuals on both sides. The scene transitions in The Heroes are fantastic. Very often you seamlessly move back and forth from side to side. You may, for example, see a man shoot an arrow on one side, and then you move over to the other side, the person that's being shot at. This allows for not only a contrast between the two sides, but also the similarities to be shown, further getting at Abercrombie's general point on the futility of war, which I will say does get shoved down your throat just a bit more in this book than in some of his others, but you really get to see both sides, the mistakes, the fighting, both sides looking at the same things quite a lot, and it's a very, very interesting take. Furthermore, the seamless change allowed for one of my favorite passages in the entire book, which was a chapter titled Chain of Command. It read almost like its own short story, all on its own, and it was just fantastically well written, where we see, starting at the top, orders being passed down the line, all the different takes of how that kind of works, and this is something, the chain of command, and more so the negative aspects of always having the person on top getting angry at the person just below them, that whole kind of chain. For How I Met Your Mother fans, the chain of yelling, I guess. You see that a lot, but seeing the orders flow through and end up getting intercepted and then flowing through the other side as well, it was just a really, really great passage. However, there are definitely some issues with this book, and though, while I find it a very enjoyable read, there were definitely plenty of Abercrombie-isms that had a negative impact. Despite focusing largely on characters we haven't seen much of, there are a lot of repeated phrases, ideas, and mindsets, some originating from the trilogy with different mantras, or the old, "oh, 3 trees used to say," kind of thing. And some were new as well. We start to get a lot of similar descriptions for different scenes. I think part of this is because there are so many battle scenes, fighting scenes that just are inherently going to be similar. So in some ways this is something that probably could not have been avoided, but it does start to get repetitive at points. Really, though, one pretty glaring issue I felt was in the heroes was the thing that Abercrombie is best known for, his character work, being a bit lacking in some places compared to the first law. That's not to say it was poor by any stretch, but when you set such an extremely high standard for characters, it's really easy to fall below it. I mentioned the transitions back and forth between the two sides, which was overall a positive point, and it was great for the narrative structure, but there were some different groups of people, especially the newer recruits, that were just so similar. Their mannerisms, the way they talked, what they're thinking about, it honestly got hard to tell them apart and keep track of who was who at some points because of that aspect. And quite a bit of the situational dialogue tended to be a bit similar on both sides as well. Now, once again, partially some of that was the point. It was showing both sides really thinking the same things, but once again, it was something that just made some of the characters fall a little flat. But we also had a big thing with the leaders taking on roles that just felt like they were a rehash of the Marshal in the First Law, instead of being their own characters. In the trilogy, Black Dow is painted as this ruthless and evil beyond all other type person. Croy is a somewhat competent general, but one focused on petty rivalry more so than fighting. And in the heroes, they both have basically the same qualities. They both feel the weight of responsibility, have issues with their commanders, and it's just really, really different. Black Dow seems wholly much softer, Croy much more competent than what, to me, is realistic even given the time that's passed. We even see, near the end, a pretty much instantaneous change from I know what's better than the leaders to the tired leader who suddenly understands the burden of leadership trope when one individual is promoted. Now, the big play on the title, like I talked about a little bit before, is of course heroes. The heroes being the specific place, but further exploring the idea of heroes on both sides and from all points of view. The problem is that we've already gotten a lot of this from the North, especially in the previous books. That was a really big talking point with not only Logan, but with his group, Three Trees and the Dogman and all of them, about how, being a hero is not necessarily all it's cracked up to be. We saw that with Shivers and Master of Cold, so it is something that we've looked at quite a lot, and Abercrombie seems like he really wants to just keep hitting you over the head with it here. The differing viewpoints helped a bit. You saw people who really truthfully only saw the good parts, their view souring, the people who kind of have been around, and all the different in-betweens, but there were just some scenes, especially a scene near the very end, where you were just pummeled with the cynical view of heroes, and there's a specific scene at the end that just kind of came off as condescending with how much it was talking down to you about, oh, you're a hero. Yeah, like, we got the point of what you were trying to get at. But despite the issues above, Abercrombie's prose and storytelling still very much shine and keep you invested in the story. Like his other books, there's a lot that's pretty predictable, but he'll put in just enough situations that don't quite go like you, or the characters for that matter, thought they would. To me, Abercrombie really doesn't try to hide his intentions with the story very much in his writing, but focuses more on the why behind it than the what. There are a couple more things I want to discuss that will start getting into rather large spoilers, so at this point, if you do want to skip past the spoiler section, check the description for the timestamp that you can skip to. With that, I want to talk more about some things I liked and did not like with the ending. The first big dislike was Beaz and his involvement. Simply put, it was exactly what you would expect. He was secretly in control of everything, no surprise, nothing new, basically the same thing as the end of the First Law trilogy. Besides that, though, I thought we did get some more creative endings for some of the characters. Mainly Calder, who it was pretty evident was going to end up king by the end, but choosing not to kill his brother and instead let him be king and have them basically rule together, that wasn't really expected, and it was kind of a nice end for the character that we saw developing, actually being somewhat of an almost happy ending for him as well, and we saw that a little bit with Finree also. Of course, it's this sort of cynical happy ending, but still a little bit happier than you'd expect in an Abercrombie story as well. And the ending with Craw, while a bit on the nose, I felt like was very fitting. He tried the whole retire and fade away thing. It didn't work, and of course there's another war, so he goes back to the only thing he's ever known. Craw definitely felt like he was heading for a more tropey end, so I think this subverted it just enough, while also allowing for continued commentary on war from Abercrombie. So overall, there's a lot I liked, and plenty I disliked about the heroes, which very much fits into my love-hate relationship of Abercrombie's work on the bigger scale. This one was definitely over closer to love, however, and despite its flaws, the heroes had an extremely tight and well-written narrative that takes a unique and well-executed approach on the full story of a battle. Even with 500-plus pages, I found myself flying through this book. If you enjoy Abercrombie and his writing style, you'll probably enjoy this as well. If you, like me, you had issues with the kind of lack of plot execution in the First Law trilogy, you may even enjoy this a little bit more because of the tight storytelling. If you don't like grimdark or aren't much a fan of Abercrombie's style, this is not going to be for you. It's very much Abercrombie's style. He knows his style, he likes his style, he sticks to his style. That said, that was my review of The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a like, and if you'd like to see more content like this, feel free to subscribe.